meeting to start, so I would like to say welcome to our invocation speaker here tonight. He represents the Gideons as their statewide chaplain, but's been a longtime member of the Shiawassee County Gideons. Chaplain Loomis, the floor is yours.
May I remove this so that you can hear me?
Yes.
Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time of meeting. Father, we thank you for our elected officials. We thank you for the sacrifice that they've made to represent our community. We pray tonight that you would give them the knowledge and facts that they need to understand the problems and to make wise decisions. Father, we're thankful for everyone that's in attendance. Father, we all come with special burdens, things on our hearts and in our lives. And we know that you are the God of all comfort. And so we ask that you would draw near to those that have difficulties. We ask that you would give them the knowledge that they need to see their greatest need and how to resolve it. And we ask that you would bless them. I pray for my son who had shingles and now has post-shingles neuropathy. I pray that he might be able to get in to see a neurologist soon. So Father, we commit this meeting to you and ask that you would be honored in everything. These, according to your word, are your servants for good. Help them to know the good and the bad and to choose the first. We pray this in Christ's name. Amen.
Chaplain, thank you for your service. Let's see, we have a quorum in your seats. The time is now 7 o'clock, and I will call to the order this regular meeting of the Perry City Council for Thursday, September 17th of 2020. Would everyone please rise? Would you join me in saying, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Everyone may be seated. Devin, would you please call the roll?
Cottrell. Here. Craig Elliott.
Here.
Mindy Galvany. Adam Graff.
Here.
Christopher Powell.
Here.
Terry Wood.
Here.
Mayor James Hughlett.
Here.
All of the county for.
Very good. I find a quorum present, so we may conduct business. First item on the agenda is the agenda itself. The clerk and I have prepared the agenda, and to the best of our knowledge, it has all items that need to come before council for your decision tonight, and I submit it to you for your approval or amendment.
I move that the agenda be adopted as printed. Second.
Moved by Cottrell, seconded by Galvany, that the agenda be adopted as printed. Is there discussion on the agenda? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries. That'll move us to the next item, which is reading and approval of the minutes of the previous meeting. Devin, would you please read the minutes of the September 3rd, 2020 regular city council meeting?
I move that we suspend the rules, waive the reading, and approve the minutes from the September 3rd, 2020 regular meeting.
Support.
I'm sorry, did I hear a second?
Yes, you did.
Moved by Wood, seconded by Cottrell, that we suspend the rules, waive the reading, and approve the minutes of the September 3rd, 2020 meeting as presented. Is there discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries. That will move us to pre-approved reports and presentations. We have two individuals here with us tonight. I have a hunch that Larry's is going to be the shorter of the report, so I'm going to begin with Larry Lambert, who's here on behalf of the Planning Commission to give us a report on the work that they're doing. Larry?
Thank you, James. Just a few quick items. We had our planning commission meeting this past Monday evening, and in that we voted to recommend that we forward to City Council for their consideration and possible ultimate approval rezoning of the property on North Washington from residential multifamily to agriculture 1 to support growing of shiitake mushrooms on the property. There's 20 acres up there that has been purchased by David Spitzley for some experimental work that he's done. It's been favorable, so to allow him to move forward in the next steps. We concurred with the request, and so you will see that coming to the council probably at the next meeting for formal review. We also previously recommended to council some changes or potential changes to the Planning Commission Ordinance 1220. Those were previously forwarded to the city attorney by the council. Those came back from the city attorney back to the Planning Commission and were reviewed and approved by the commission in their entirety. So those also will be forwarded to you for your consideration and possible adoption there again probably at the next meeting. The other thing that we have had a lot of discussion on, and it's work in progress, is some discussion on what we do as a city with the current fee structure and ordinance and associated penalties. We're working to get some clarification to make it clearer for the residents in particular, but for everybody involved on what ordinances are out there that they need to be aware of, what permits are required, and along with that, whatever associated penalties we may bring forward for recommendation and consideration in the future. Still a work in progress. Thank you.
Council, have any questions for Mr. Lambert? Mr. Lambert, thank you very much for coming to give us a report.
Thank
Okay, do council members all have your phones with you? We're going to need that to hear our next pre-approved report. We have on Zoom with us Mr. Leon Dion from RCAP, who is going to give you a report regarding the rate study performed for us. Okay. Mr. Dion, I think everybody's on with us and you may proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you. I wish I could have joined you guys there tonight. It probably would have been a little bit easier. But good evening to everyone. My name is Leo Dion. I'm with RCAP. We're an organization that works pretty closely with the Eagle and with USDA RD, helping with water and wastewater utilities. We work on the technical side of things. We work on the financial and managerial side of things. And USDA RD had put me in touch with John at DPW to take a look at a few issues that he was having out there. And we had one of our senior operators come in and do operational maintenance review of the system and stuff like that. And then we started to talk about doing a rate study for the water and sewer utilities. I believe that whenever they do an annual review, USDRD of financials, and within that, they're looking for certain things that would stand out that meet basically the bond requirements that you guys have when you either go through the SRF fund or through RD for funding. And so what I did is I asked got 3 years of audits from you guys. I got bond documents from you guys, and I got the rate information for all your customers. And we went through and did pretty detailed rate analysis and looked at what the bond requirements were for the city and what you guys would need to do to get yourself to the point where you are, kind of satisfying those requirements under the bond covenants that had been signed off on by the council. So it's, some of it, you guys definitely have, I will say that you guys definitely have enough money set aside in your water fund to, and I'll talk about water fund and I'll talk about sewer fund separately, but in your water fund, you definitely have enough money set aside to cover any of those requirements. It's just maybe the way that you have it set up currently. You have it set up as cash rather than as restricted cash under a specific sort of set aside fund that would be required under those bond requirements. So one of the things, I go through and I just kind of look at some of the metrics for the water system and for the sewer system initially. And some of the things we like to see is a pretty healthy operating ratio, usually greater than or equal to 1.5. And you guys are currently at a 1.61. Your debt coverage ratio, we usually like to see 1.25. And you guys are slightly below that. You're just above 1 for your debt coverage ratio, which means that after all your revenues that you're bringing in, after you pay for your operations and maintenance expenses, and after you cover your debt and any requirements such as bond reserve or the repair, replacement, improvement funds, you just have a small margin left over. Whereas what we would like to see is we'd like to see you have a little bit larger margin. And then as far as the other metric that we look at is days of cash on hand. And days of cash on hand, currently, if you were to go through and set aside all the requirements of your bond reserve account and your RRI fund, you would have about 172 days of cash on hand. And, the minimum that you would want is 90 days of cash on hand, which is about 3 months, but it's probably more common to see 180 days of cash on hand. So just kind of looking at this, and then some other things that sort of stood out to me under the water fund is that in a couple of years, you guys will be paying off 2 bonds. Within that, you have a Series A and a Series B that I think come up in 2022. So you would have those paid off within the next couple of years, which frees up some additional money, about $31,000 at that point for additional coverage, like debt coverage, or additional capital improvements that you would need to be doing at that point. So water fund, just kind of going through it, the recommendations that I made, initially setting up the bond reserve account, and the bond reserve account would have it would basically have a full year's bond payments in it. So it would have, your largest bond, your largest amount of principal and interest payments for 1 year is about $143,000, maybe a little bit more than that, $144,000. So a bond reserve account would have $144,000 in it. It would be considered restricted cash. That money would go towards paying your last principal and interest payments in the last year of that bond. Other reasons that they like you to set aside that money is in case you get into an emergency situation. You have that money sitting there. Currently we're in a situation where there's probably going to be, not for you guys necessarily, but I think utilities in general, there are maybe cash crunches in the future with people paying or not paying their utility bills. So having that set aside allows you guys to pay an annual debt payment and not have to worry about it and sort of cover some of your costs in that year. The second account that's required under bond covenants is something called a repair, replacement, and improvement fund. And this fund basically, when you go in and you secure a bond, you secure the bond for 30, 40 years, and most of the assets that you're securing, water pipe, things like that, will last beyond the 30 or 40 years. But there are some assets that won't. There are some assets that are called short-lived assets, and they may only have a useful life of, let's say, 15 years. Well, at the end of the 15 years, you may need to replace that asset in the water system or wastewater system. And the funding agency wants you to have the cash on hand to be able to replace that in the 15th year, rather than having to go back to the funding agency to take on additional debt. And so they have this requirement when they set it up, and the bond councils will go through. Usually your engineers will come up with a list of all your short-lived assets. They'll put a price to it. They'll figure out the total amount, and they'll divide that by the total number of years for those short-lived assets. So if it's 15 years, they divide it by 15, and then you would be setting aside that cash amount every year. So you guys are currently in, let's see, 2008. You're currently in your 12th year with your iron removal plant of a 30-year bond. So you're about halfway through that. And so I would imagine that there's probably been some replacement that's happened of items out there, electrical, things like that, that would fall under the, being able to use those restricted caches to pay for those items. And so just kind of looking at what you guys have currently, we've kind of come up with this number of about 60,000 that needs to be in the short-lived asset fund at this point. And like I said, those funds can still be used in any given year. They just need to be used for items that are typically considered less than 20 years of useful life. So just tracking that and deducting it from the account is kind of how that would work. And then I'm not sure exactly, I don't think that we ever figured out how much annually you were supposed to be putting away in the RRI fund. That's a question that is still out at this point. So that would be an additional piece that would have to go into that account on an annual basis. So that's an additional thing that we're looking at. I'd already mentioned, even after setting aside all of this money into restricted funds, you would still have a fair amount of cash on hand. You would have 180 days of your, or you'd have 172 days of your operations and maintenance, total operations and maintenance expenses. And so that kind of gives you a general idea of the fund itself and sort of the things that we looked at and where things are at currently. One of the other things that we look at when we are going through this, I looked at the what is called a ready to serve charge. And the current ready to serve charge, I was just looking at the typical factors for your ready to serve charge. And usually those are based on the size of the meter, which you guys have yours based on the size of the meter as well. And the idea is that those are kind of capacity charges to each entity with that meter size. And so AWWA, which is the American Water Works Association, kind of has a breakdown of, if, and this is on the last page of the rate study here, has kind of a breakdown of how many gallons per minute each of these meters can use capacity-wise. Okay, so if you have, I think the majority of your residential units are 3/4 inch. So if we look at 3/4 inch, it can use about 30 gallons per minute. And as you go up, it becomes 50 and 100, 160, all the way up to, I think 6 inches, the largest one that you guys have, which is 1,600 gallons per minute. So its ability to utilize capacity on the system far outweighs the residential. And so what we do is when we look at that ready to serve charge, we set it up such that it's a factor of the residential service. And so just looking at the factors that you have currently in here, and that's under, it shows meter size and it shows current factor. The factor numbers, for instance, for 1 inch is 1.19. And typically, I think what you would see in a system like yours is 1.67. For 1 1/2 inch, your factor is 1.47, and typically you would see 3.33. And the reason that I bring this up is, anytime you structure your rates, or restructure your rates, it gets offset by one sort of class of meters or another class of meters. So in this case, the way that you have your ready to serve rates set up, I would say that your residential customers typically are paying a little bit more of a percentage of the capacity fee than your commercial customers within the system. Now, systems do this for all sorts of reasons. They might want to just set it up in this case to spur economic development potentially, or things like that. So it's not wrong that it's like this, but it is something that you as the council, city council, should be aware of this. And so one of the recommendations that I've put forward here is maybe restructuring this ready to serve charge over a 5-year period and sort of phasing it in for what a typical factor would be for 1 inch and larger meters. And I have done that. I've shown you what that would look like on the last page as well. It's all the way off to the right-hand side. It's 2021, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And essentially your 3/4 inch, your residential meter would stay about the same size. It would stay relatively the same as far as your ready to serve charge goes. And then we would phase in over a 5-year period an increase on the ready to serve charge for 1 inch and larger meters. So that would, over a 5-year period, that would increase the revenues to the system by about $27,000. Is kind of what we're looking at here, which comes out to be, it's, hold on one second. I think when we were looking at it, based on total revenues, it was less than 2% of an increase, or about 2% of an increase for revenues during that period of time. So that is one recommendation that you guys have in front of you that I'm sure there will be questions about. Also, the other thing that typically we're kind of making recommendations on now is building in an automatic small increase, a 2-3% increase, annual increase to the revenues every year, and doing that on both the ready to serve as well as the commodity side of the charge. And what this does is just kind of takes into account inflationary expenses that you'll have throughout the year. It also provides a little bit of predictability for the customer. When I go out and do rate studies for municipalities all throughout the state, what we're seeing is that municipalities will not raise their rates for 5-10 years, and then in the 10th year they're so far behind in revenues because they haven't captured small increases over time that they have to, and I've seen anywhere from 10 to 50% increases on rates that need to happen to cover expenses in those. Well, I've seen some that have gone longer than 10 years, but what we're recommending is that over a period of time, do smaller increases. It provides predictability for your customers. Most of us don't get a 10 to 50% increase in our paychecks annually. So we wouldn't want to do that to our customers. A lot of us do see 2 to 3% increases in our paychecks annually. And we expect, if you look at other utilities, you look at electrical, you look at gas, what we're seeing is that they build in these inflationary adjustments annually to their, and over time, it actually keeps your rates lower because you're capturing more revenue over a period of time rather than having to capture it in the 10th year or the 15th year or later than that. So that is another thing that we're recommending. And then also we're working on, we're going to be working on helping to complete a capital improvement plan for the water utility over the next 5 to 10 years. And anytime you put together, a capital improvement plan, one of the things you want to look at is how are you going to fund that, and how are you going to phase in, if you are going to finance it, having a plan for financing it or having a plan for paying for that over that period of time, rather than, getting to the 10th year when you have to do a major capital improvement and being kind of hit with this expectation for there to be a large increase for bonding or whatever in that year. Plan it out, maybe do adjustments a little bit more regularly to the rates, and get yourself there, get yourself to the revenues that you need over a period of time rather than having to do it in 1 or 2 or 3 years. That is it on the water side. On the sewer side, the thing that came to light as we were doing sewer is that the city of Perry currently is on what's called an REU system, which is residential equivalent unit. Okay, and so the way that they come up with residential equivalent units are there's been maybe an engineering study from similar town, maybe you had an engineering study done at some point in your town that looked at the businesses and gave an estimate for how much water was being used by each of those businesses. And then they assigned a factor to those businesses. So when I found out that you guys were doing that, most places, if you have water meters installed, you're basing your billing off of volumetric charges. So your water meter is basically the way that you bill for sewer as well, because water in is water out for the most part, unless it's like sprinkler or something special like that. But there's ways of dealing with that, ways of making adjustments. So the final recommendation, really going from what you have now in REU to a volumetric charge on the city would be, would be something that I would recommend doing. It's a little bit more of a, rather than just kind of spreading the averages across all of your users, it's a little bit more focused and a little bit more equitable for people using the water. Some people are probably paying less now than they would be paying, and some people are probably paying more than they would be paying. So not completely equitable across the board with the REU model. So I think that is sort of, it's both a little bit of short-term and a little bit of long-term recommendations here. In the short term, I think that I've worked pretty closely with John, and I think that his recommendations on increases this year for water and sewer are in line with what he needs moving forward. And I think that what we would do is then look at some of these ideas as we move forward beyond this year. Is there any questions out there?
Council have any questions for Mr. Brians?
So could you real quick tell us what the bottom line is that you're recommending?
So the bottom line is that I think that, so bottom line as far as what goes, like, are you, as far as raising rates, as far as
Yes.
making rate adjustments?
Correct.
Yeah, so I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, James, I don't have the document, or Mayor, I don't have the document in front of me, but I believe that John had put forward was it a 3% increase on both sewer and water rates this year going forward, which would be sort of a minimum sort of automatic, like, kind of increase.
Did you hear him, James? He's asking you a question.
Did we put John's rates in front of council with their packet?
That's what he's asking.
I don't know if they were included in the packet or not, I don't have it in hand.
No, the 3% was not presented to council.
Okay,
So
good.
So that'll come, we're gonna have several motions that are gonna be necessary. Council's gonna need motions to create these bond reserves and set aside money into restricted accounts. And also there will need to be specific motions to deal with these ready to serve charge changes and recommendations. And so each of those pieces that require action by council to bring us in line with the recommendations will have to come before you in meetings coming up. We're going to work to get those before you as we go. Leo's given us our report tonight so we can get a sense of where we're going. And then 3% is consistent with what I understood from John. But we don't have the rates for you tonight. We try not to feed you with a fire hose, but to feed you with a garden hose rather. Give you a chance to absorb the different pieces before we ask you to start making approvals.
Yeah, and so there really is some pieces here that are like literally required by your bond covenants that you have, which would be these set-aside accounts. Like they're kind of written into the bond covenants, so they are requirements, and it's something that councils or previous councils had already signed off on and stuff like that. So those things are the first two items on the recommendations. I kind of put those up front because I think those are the ones that probably USDRD, when they were looking at your audits, probably saw and thought, okay, we see that there's a pool of money here, but where are these restricted funds for these specific like items? So I was trying to divide out some of the information here, and I agree with the gentleman who was saying basically there's different sorts of recommendations in here. Each one of them are going to kind of have to be voted on separately. I would say that as far as the sewer charges, those need to really be looked at in depth if you want to go from an REU to a volumetric charge. And so that's not something that's going to happen currently. It's really something, I believe that this year you just need to look at probably just looking at where you guys were at last year, you probably need to do an adjustment, a slight adjustment to increase that. Then we need to, over the next year, probably dig into the sewer charges and look at how we're going to switch those over to volumetric charges, so that people get charged for the volume of water that they're using or the volume of water that's going into their sewers and stuff like that, rather than being charged equivalent unit. Just to give you an idea of what that means. So a one person household is currently being charged the same as a 6-person household for sewer. And so it's not just within your your commercials that there's kind of unequitability. There's also some inequitability within the residential side of things as well. So maybe looking at readjusting those so that it's volumetric would, it would, it's going to increase some people's bills, but it will also decrease some people's bills who are, potentially like one-person households and stuff like that. So that would provide some, yeah. So that's another reason to look at that, but that's kind of a long-term goal. And then I think kind of looking at building in these automatic annual adjustments, I think that's something that you guys would be doing this year. And that might be something that we look at doing in the future. So it's the automatic adjustments are kind of, it would be set up by the council, it'd be voted on once, but it would be an annual automatic adjustment to the rates, and it wouldn't have to be voted on every year. It would just happen automatically unless the council saw that they had too much money coming into the funds and they wanted to skip a year, then you guys could vote to skip a year. But what it does, I think, is it helps you guys, it helps the rates stay where they need to be to cover inflation at a minimum. The capital plan, that is sort of a next year goal as well. And one of the, I guess, probably main things that we could look at this year is potentially adjusting these ready to serve charges for 1-inch meters or larger. And that would be basically the last page. It just shows like 2021, 2022, and how those rates would increase over that period of time.
So
I don't know.
my recommendation for council is going to be that we bring ourselves in line with this rate study. We begin to look at and adopt the various principles that they put in place for us here on how these water systems, utility systems, sewer systems are commonly run. We're going to get in front of you as quickly as possible the mandate, things that we have no choice but. The other recommendations will come to you piece by piece, and this will likely carry over into the next administration and the next city council. But I'm going to work to advance this as we go, month by month. And then we'll pass it off to the new city council that comes into office on December 1st.
Can I ask Leo a question?
Go ahead.
On the sewer metric that you're talking about switching us over, is
Yes.
there any kind of a base fee like we do with the water meter that would be applied to that?
Yeah, so we would basically the best practice is to have a capacity charge. So have a ready to serve charge which covers your fixed expenses, and then to have a volumetric charge along with that. And so it would be a mix of the two. Currently, it's just a flat fee. So basically, it's a ready to serve charge, a flat fee with no volumetric charge at all.
Right, okay.
Other questions from council? If council has no other questions, I'm going to excuse Mr. Dion. Are you guys ready for me to do that?
I would also say that I'm happy to answer any questions. If anything comes up after this, if anyone has any questions, I know that the mayor has my information. Feel free to reach out to me, contact me with any questions that you guys have.
Yeah, we'll be able to do that as we work through this process if questions come up. Mr. Dion, thank you for your service.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
You too.
Bye.
Okay, so that concludes our pre-approved report from RCAP. And I'm going to open the door for one more possibility. I see, in light of our discussion about seeking a grant and some engineering needs, we have with us Perry Township Supervisor, Mr. March Fox, and from the Shiawassee Economic Development Partnership, Mr. Justin Horvath. Do you guys have a report that you want to deliver regarding that matter?
Sure. Can we start? Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Justin Horvath. Football sleeves. No, I was talking this earlier.
Exercising.
Yeah, I was exercising the night at Fitness Coliseum, so. Good evening, everyone. Justin Horvath, Shiawassee Economic Development Partnership. Live in Owasso, 818 South Washington Street, in case you need that, Devin. The purpose of our visit tonight, I have Supervisor Mark Folks with me from Perry Township. There is a very unique opportunity that has presented itself as part of one of the stimulus packages out of Washington. What we have, there is a federal program through the U.S. Department of Commerce. It's called the Economic Development Administration. And what they do is they fund projects throughout the country that support economic growth. Well, one of their primary tools that they like to support, or programs they like to support, are public infrastructure projects. So things like water, sewer, roads, things of that nature. Normally, that effort takes a 50% local match. So this program's been around a long time, in case anyone's wondering. It's not a new program, but the local match portion is 50, and that's very onerous for a lot of communities to try to identify that. In addition, they normally have to make you go through a very rigorous planning process in order to be able to even apply for those dollars. Well, what has changed this time and why we're here tonight is that plan has been waived, and probably more importantly, that 50% match is now down to 20%. So it's an 80% grant, a 20% match. On top of that, our friends at the State Economic Development Organization, some of you know the Michigan Economic Development Corporation, they are offering to provide a 50% match to the local portion. So now we're essentially talking about a 90% grant and a 10% match. Here's where it gets even better. Because of some dealings, and I'll let Supervisor Folks talk about this, Perry Township has some opportunity as well to put some capital up to provide the 10% match. Now, all that being said, what project are we talking about? Well, as many of you know, we have talked for the last several years about the possibility of getting infrastructure to a development area that's been identified east of M52. Think of the Lansing Road corridor, take that east down to Bennett Drive, the Township Industrial Park, and then south to Britain, and then back to the schools. There's a lot of property in there, a lot of land in there, in the city and in the township. We've had some businesses develop in recent years. There is still a lot of land available for development. And one of the challenges, as we know, a significant amount of that area is not served currently by infrastructure, particularly water. That is a big factor that a lot of businesses look at, not so much for usage, but for things like fire suppression. We've had inquiring businesses in the past. Many of you know we spent quite a bit of time a few years ago looking at the opportunity to serve the Transfleet property. I remember being in a meeting here, actually, on this floor for that project. Now, they were able to proceed and do what they needed to do without having to tap in. However, they did at the time extend a line from their building out to the right-of-way on Lansing Road, and I have confirmed, talking to the owner, they have interest in connecting with water. In addition, I have had some preliminary conversations with other businesses that are in that stretch of road that also have interest in being able to tap into the water. All that being said, I think we have a path forward with a good program, a unique opportunity to get upwards of 90% grant money to be able to pay for an infrastructure project that is needed not only to support existing business in the city and in the township, and also create the opportunity for future development, particularly commercial industrial, in an area that is really well suited for that type of growth. So with that, in order to be able to make application to the EDA, they need to have a little more information. They need to have specifics, in particular, and why we're here tonight, on what the proposed infrastructure project is, what the preliminary engineering costs are. They're also going to need to know other things like who are the businesses that are interested, what type of economic development could they potentially create, and there's some other factors too that we can get into. But specifically, why we're here tonight, you have a proposal in front of you regarding the potential of working with the township on completing some of that preliminary engineering work that would allow us to put the grant application together and then hopefully be able to receive that funding from the federal government and the state to get this project done. So I think maybe with that, Mark, do you want to jump in, and I'll be available for questions as well.
Thanks, Justin. And really, without Justin's input, we wouldn't have even pursued it. But once we found out it was a 10%, which really is, could be 5% and 5%, 5% for the city of Perry, 5% for Perry Township, you know, basically. Because when you think about it, it's something that you want as far as additional water, booster pump. You have property, you have no well, but it'd be nice to have one. You could have your infrastructure, and also we could get the water loop run. The problem is you need an engineer to tell you the size. Is it really 12 inch? Is it 8 inch? You know, and we don't really have a modeling with the city of Perry. I met with John. In fact, we met up here, and he doesn't really have the modeling that we need. We need engineering model, but that can be done with the grant money. It's about a $40,000. That's why you don't have it. So I go back to calling someone I've known for 30 years. I was an engineer with the city of Flint for 29 years, a PE, professional engineer. Did many road things with them and utilities things with them. I've known Trevor Wackermaker for 30 years. He lives in Lansing. He works out of Howe. But this Hubbleroth and Clark is probably the biggest in Michigan. They're not going to oversee the engineering work, but they'll work on a proposal. And that's good because Justin's application says if you have an engineer work on it, they can't be involved in bidding, which is fine. We don't care. We need to know, can we do it? And this is can we do it? Do we have the infrastructure in the ground now? And do we have the tools? Do we need a water tower? And if so, probably 200,000 is overkill. You know, if you got a 2,500 suppression for a business that needs fire suppression, then you don't need a 200,000 gallon water tower sitting over there on Lansing Road. One thing, it'll sit there and stale. You know, you have stale water. You know, you got to recirculate it. Trevor knows all that. They're doing a water loop right now in Fowlerville. He's overseeing it. And so this is a simple thing for him. He'll do it. He'll have it done in about 3.5 weeks if we give him the go-ahead. We would split the cost with you. We've already approved last month our meeting $2,000, which I did not know the cost, but as it turned out, it's $4,000, $2,000 apiece. So we're all set on our end. And so, do they have a copy of this proposal in their packet? Do you have this from Hubbleroth and Clark?
Yes.
Again, Trevor's a senior associate. I trust him. He's and Troy Parmalee, our treasurer, was very impressed with him. The questions he asked, he had the answers. So, you know, we're on board. And so my thought is to explain to you what the proposal is. It'd be run on the north. We have a water line, whether it's 8 inch, 10 inch, 12 inch, north side of Old Lansing Road. Come underneath the road on the east side. On the east side of Bennett Drive, come back to your high school. Terry's told me about the stagnant water at the high school. This will solve that problem. You won't have probably to flush the hydrants like they're doing all the time. You know, you still can do that, but you're going to have constant water circulation, which is going to help you guys. Any questions I can answer?
Let me add a little bit more in as we've worked through this process. The reason that we're looking to split this is that there's a tremendous potential benefit to both the township and the city. Not only is it going to allow the township to get the benefit of city water service at a very favorable 10% rate into their industrial park area and much of their development area, but it's also going to loop that northeast corner of the city in a way that we expect is going to begin to help clear up some of the problems that part of the city has suffered. It's not looped as well as the other quarters of the city, and it's got some old lines in it. This will be part of moving towards that solution. But the other piece of it, when John and I sat down to talk about it, was a recognition that our current well field capacity is committed to the existing development within the city. In other words, once we develop up on the Four Corners where we're at, once we develop over in Perry Lakes, out in the, I forget the name of the subdivision on the south end of Bath Road. Once we develop there, we've reached our capacity. But as council is likely going to remember, a few years back, we had an opportunity to acquire a new well field for the city of Perry, which will increase our capacity. The one thing that we haven't figured out how to do is how we're going to pay to develop that well field. This is an opportunity to present the development of that well field as part of this grant application. It will give us the capacity to service this additional extension into the township. It'll provide capacity for the benefit of the future, for the city's future. And so, because we're going in this as equal partners, it's our opinion that splitting the cost of these engineering services makes a lot of sense. Plus, it becomes an outstanding opportunity for the township and the city to work together for everyone's benefit.
And just to flesh out, Mr. Mayor and the council and the public, while we don't have numbers, and that's why we're obviously doing this, I think a good way to potentially think about it, given the dollars that are available and the matches that are available, would be probably somewhere in the neighborhood of a $2.5 million project, of which $2 million of that would be federal grant money, so that's 80% of the project, and then the remaining $500,000 we would go for $250,000 from the state, and that is the max that the state will match, which would leave a $250,000 local contribution. So
Probably roughly half and half.
half and half, yeah. So the hope here is, and as this engineering work gets done, is how much of this, as you see here in the document, you know, the capacity issue, the well, the loop, all that, how much can we do within that general budget? You know, obviously we all know construction costs have gone up substantially, so I'm very curious to see, given that, you know, what can we get done? Hopefully as much as possible. The way I would look at this, though, is there's, you know, other than this cost, obviously, to do some preliminary engineering, which is good information, there's no cost to apply for the grant, and I don't know when we're going to get this type of opportunity again to go for a grant of this size. It came about because of COVID, to be honest. They wanted to get more money, more stimulus money for these projects, so, you know, I would certainly encourage you know, your support in moving this application forward, because, you know, it's a great opportunity.
We talked about deadlines, and if you can get this done in 4 weeks, we're about a month and a half ahead of what Justin said. If we can get this thing presented to the state guy?
Yeah, so,
State gentleman,
yep,
before Christmas, we've got a pretty good chance of getting some of the pot of the money, which is what we want to do. And I've read your reports that you've had in the past, and they're fine. There were some questions I had about them, that's why I said, let's just start with somebody new, somebody that I trust. And he's doing a $20 million job in Flint right now on Dork Highway water under the road. They're a good company. They're mainly in Detroit, but they do a lot of good work. And Trevor's willing. He says, I live in Lansing. I drive by there to Howell. I have no problem stopping in there. He stopped in and met with us, met with Justin, and so. He's a good guy, so.
Does council have any questions for the supervisor or for Justin? Gentlemen, thank you.
In our township, we voted 5-0 to approve our part, just so you know. Okay?
all right, thanks, everybody.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Good question.
So it's going down Britton Road from Industrial Park to the
From
school.
Bennett West.
Yep.
So will
North side.
both, because it's split, it's one side of the road is city, the other side is township. So will both township people and city people have to hook in?
The city hydrant stops around the high school, the north side of the road. I'm sure it's going to hook in. And what Trevor said is, it looks like because of the elevations, we'll probably have to put a booster pump in right there. A booster pump right there, irregardless of the well that you're going to need, but there'll be a booster pump right there. So because your water pressure's up there is going to start dropping off.
Part of the process that'll go through in negotiating, if we can get the money together to do the extension, will be, because we extend the water out, with the township will be asked to adopt an ordinance that requires those along the route where water service has been provided to hook in when their well fails.
Right.
So they'll be able to hook immediately if they want to, but if they say, no, I don't want to, like residents and businesses in the city, in the future, they won't be able to drill a new well. They'll be mandated by township ordinance to hook into the water system
Right.
when their well fails. So it'd be just like it would be if you were in the city.
And we do expect businesses to want to, it's a different dynamic with businesses and residents, obviously. And businesses, what we've been hearing, and I mentioned earlier, we expect them to want it to be able to help with fire suppression. That's certainly something that allows them to get better insurance on their building when they know there is a municipal line and, you know, of water available versus trying to draw out of a private well. So,
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
okay.
Other questions? Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
But that will conclude the pre-approved reports, and we'll move to public comment. This is the first opportunity. Also, later in the meeting, under any other business, we open the floor up for members of the public to address the city council on any member or any matter which they may wish to share about. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comment for each individual in each section, so each speaker can have up to 6 minutes between the two sections. Devin, do we have some members of the public with us on Zoom?
If we do, nobody's raising their hand to speak.
Okay, so I'll just make the statement. If anybody with us on Zoom from the public would like to address the council, please raise your hand for the clerk, and we will be ready to hear you. No indications? Very good. If any members of the public who are with us here in person tonight would like to address the council, please indicate so, and we're ready to hear you. Mr. Lambert.
Got a couple of comments. I see that later on in the agenda, you're going to be having some discussion about the city's position on Halloween celebration as well as Christmas time celebration. Just a couple of comments focused on the Halloween activity. I would strongly like to have the council consider adopting we will allow trick-or-treating within the city and leave it at parental discretion in terms of whether or not individuals do in fact trick-or-treat, but leave that up to the individual families. I did do a little bit of research and saw that CDC has come out with some Halloween guidelines here in the last couple of days. We happen to be in Shiawassee County, labeled by the CDC a yellow area. And let me just read quickly one little comment. In the yellow zone, trick-or-treat is possible, but they say make sure the places you're visiting are following safety protocols so you can stay safe, and any party goers should be wearing face masks indoors. So we've got some preliminary information from the CDC, and I'd just like to see whether or not we can, in these crazy times, allow our youngsters to safely, but have the opportunity to go out and trick-or-treat this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Would anyone else from the public like to address the council on any matter? Bob?
Good evening, Council. Bob Porter, 330 North Madison. I want to first say that the presentation, I think that we should wholeheartedly look into it very strongly. It sounds really great. As well as Larry, I'm going to talk about Halloween. I know I've heard a lot of things about people canceling and oh my gosh, I'm this and that and the other thing. I think we can do it safe. It'd be terrible to take it away from the kids with the year they had with the school and everything else. My suggestion, what I'm going to do at my own household is put a table or something out the end of the street, sidewalk, at the city sidewalk, put a bowl of candy out there and just monitor it from the porch so I'm 10 or 15 feet away. That way there's no interaction and, wear face masks and that kind of stuff, but keep that distance and the fresh air. So I would suggest if the city can adopt any kind of suggestions or rules or whatever, that would be one, strongly admit, that they can do this. People can get self-service, you just got to watch it so, you don't have the greedy ones taking the whole bowl and running down the street. So, and then the other thing for Halloween that we used to do in the community I came from, a lot of people from township and stuff would come into the city, it was Ortonville, and trick-or-treat, because it's hard to trick-or-treat out in the rural area. So all the township people would donate candy to the city would collect it, and the people in the city, the residents, would be able to get that from the city and pass it out. So it took some of the financial burden off the people in the city and may increase our participation. I've noticed the last couple of years that some of it has dropped. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Would anyone else from the public like to address the council on any matter at this time? Mr. Loomis?
I was interested in asking a question about what is a Second Amendment sanctuary city, and what is the need in the city of Perry for such a categorization?
Coming up under old business, Councilman Wood, whose issue this is, will have an opportunity to present that information.
It's coming up on our agenda, so
Okay.
we'll be talking about it shortly.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll be able to fill you in.
Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public like to address the council on any matter at this time? Any other public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment and move to communications. Devin, do you have any communications for council tonight?
I just want to report that I do have a copy of the recommendation from Planning Commission regarding the rezoning, and I will plan on having it in your packets at the next meeting for consideration of approval or not. And also, Mr. Lambert is let me know that Planning Commission is okay with the attorney's presentation of the amendment to the ordinance, and so I'll have that in your packets at the next meeting also to consider.
Thank you. Next item on our agenda is mayor report. I don't have anything new to report on that isn't already under business items, so I'll reserve it for when we get to items of business. Does council have any questions for me that aren't already on their agenda today? There are no questions, we'll move to committee reports. Do members of council have any committee reports to deliver tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to presentation and approval of the bills. City council has had the opportunity to review the bills and will seek your permission to pay them.
I move that we approve the bills as presented and that payment be authorized.
Second.
Moved by Wood, seconded by Elliott, that we approve the bills as presented and payment be authorized. Is there any discussion on the bills? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please vote no. Motion carries. That will move us to old business. Our first item of old business is discussion about becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary city. Terry has provided a copy of Shiawassee County resolution, which has been included in your packet. Council's had an opportunity to review that. Terry, we'll let you go first, and then we'll open things up for discussion and deliberation.
Well, way back when I started this, back when the county did theirs, and what it really does is just a statement. It don't give you any more rights, it don't defer any rights, it don't do anything. It just confirms the Second Amendment that we believe in it. It's kind of just symbolic more than anything. You can't sue anybody, ain't gonna cause anybody to get sued, ain't gonna make anybody go buy guns or get rid of their guns or anything like that. So I thought because of the way they've been, with some of their laws, that it'd be nice just to have that stated.
Who's they?
Well, the government, when they-
Ben, who's they?
Laws, the government laws, you know, when they come after guns and stuff. And they ain't gonna take their guns. They ain't gonna have no. Huh?
State or federal laws, you're talking about federal laws?
Yeah. But it's just a symbolic type thing, and I put it on there, and I've been delaying it so that everybody could get a chance to have a little input on it, converse on it. It don't mean anything, because the county's already a sanctuary county, so we already fall under it.
Terry, do you know around this area, what other cities or counties are sanctuary cities?
No,
Owasso, you said Owasso is?
Oh, I don't know.
He said.
I know the county is, but I haven't heard of, there's a lot of places doing it. I mean, all across the state they're doing it.
A very intelligent person talked to me about this when they saw it on the agenda and asked a question, so I'm gonna ask that simple question. The question I was asked is, why wouldn't this be submitted to voters? And I thought, well, that's an interesting question. It's worth addressing. So why wouldn't our step be, rather than have city council make a vote on something like this, why wouldn't we submit it to the voters in November?
You could, but it's not necessary. I mean, it's just a resolution is all.
I agree.
I
it's
mean, you're
not
not
legally
changing the
required,
charter,
but
you're not changing anything, you're not providing any way that you could sue somebody one way or the other from it.
I agree it's not legally required. I just found the question an interesting one.
I guess I never even really give it a thought because it's something that we can do here.
Fair enough.
I'm wondering why we would need to do anything when that's already been done by the county?
You don't. You don't have to. It's just
More of a declaration?
being a gun guy and having hunted my whole life and teaching my grandkids and give away my age, my great-grandkids now to shoot and the safety of them, and being a vet during Vietnam, I just support the Second Amendment wholeheartedly. And I thought, well, this is just kind of neat. I talked to some of my brothers down, the veterans down there, and they thought they'd like it, you know. So I thought, well, I'll put it on here, let you guys talk about it and see what you wanted to do. Like I say, it don't do anything other than a symbolic thing that states we're a sanctuary city for Second Amendment.
What does it mean to be a sanctuary city?
Not a whole bunch more. Have you read the ordinance that the county's put through?
Well, I've read the resolution that the county put through.
Yeah. But isn't that what I said, the resolution?
You said
Ordinance, I'm sorry, resolution.
That was on the phone.
Oh,
Are you still on the phone?
I guess I am.
So
I don't
this
know who I'm
does
talking
nothing
to, but
but just say Perry likes guns.
yeah, don't even say that. It says you support the Second Amendment of the Constitution.
Well, I think we all do. We all took an oath
I
to
know it.
support the Constitution.
I know it.
We're already on record saying that.
I think I said it was
Not just
symbolic.
Second Amendment, but all the
It's just symbolic. It's like a reaffirmation of the Second Amendment or the Constitution of the United States. Sometimes you should really go back and read the Constitution. There's some people up there in higher offices that ought to read it.
Can't argue with that. Why do we need to do this now? What's happening that should spur us to take a stand at this time?
It's just something that was happening and I seen it and I kind of thought, well, this is something I'd like to bring here. Talked to a few people and they said, okay, why not? You know, and if you guys don't want to do it, that's fine too. I mean, I just brought it forth here and said, be something to do. Maybe a waste of time, I don't know. It ain't gonna do anything one way or the other.
Further deliberation? Amber time?
I'll weigh in. Whatever the tone or the intention of other communities that have taken the Second Amendment and laws regarding Second Amendments and how they reflect constitutionality are very socially divisive. We know that. No matter what side of the argument you're on, it invokes a very strong response in a lot of people. That's just how it is, no matter where you stand. So when this issue has been on our agenda for many months, I have not seen any member of the public or received any communication strongly in support of it or strongly not in support of it. I have not seen either side come forward with a strong opinion about this. And I was hoping that at that time we would get some feedback from the community about where their positions were on that, if they wanted to see it as a valid issue, but I haven't really seen that information come forward. One of the things that I really respect about Perry City Council and getting to know everybody here is that despite maybe our own personal political affiliations, this body remains nonpartisan. And that despite our differences, we continue to move forward in a way that reflects what Perry needs. And that we focus on the needs of Perry in terms of repairs to our water tower, repairs to our local attractions, sidewalks, sewers, that we stay focused on the issue that really impact the people here. There are a lot of voices in state and federal government that have taken up this issue, and those on both sides of the aisle and on both sides of the issue have really valid points to discuss. But here in Perry, I feel like the people have elected us to focus on local issues, repairing our city, making it a good place to live and making it a great place to have a business. I wrote down some notes because I want to make sure I said everything that I wanted to. I want the city council to strive to remain relevant to the job that we have been elected to do, that is care for our city, to address the unique concerns that are for Perry, and attempt to remain nonpartisan in our attempt to do so. But my biggest concern is this, is that partisan voices on both sides of the issue can take our message of what we put here and start to assign value to the citizens of Perry. They will take this message that we have and decide one way or another what we think and what we feel for all of the city of Perry. And that message will go out on social media, it will go out into local media, and it will go out into state media, and we don't have control of it anymore. These groups will use us as a mallet to bang their own drum, and I'm concerned about that. I don't want that for Perry. If the voters want to bring it to a resolution, and we as a body, as a city, want to be the mallet for that drum, so be it. But for us to decide for city residents what the tone and tenure of how others in public will discuss our city, I don't want to see that happen.
Well, they do that on everything we do anyway, and they should. They should judge us on what we do, okay? And your opinion is good. I have no problem with that. And like I said, it don't do anything one way or the other. It don't give you any more teeth for or against. It just says we support this Second Amendment.
Councilman Arnold?
I just have to say that when it comes to government, one thing I really despise is the amount and the volume of things that go on in government, and the amount of laws and stuff that just overlap and are inconsequential that are put into place and make a law, or our government gluttonous, let's put that, it's a better way to put it, if I could say. Our Second Amendment is in our Constitution. It's part of our government. Currently, there's only certain ways that it can be revoked. And believe me, if that was to happen, we would know about it, because it takes an extensive amount of power to overchange an amendment to the Constitution. Last time I think it was done was, if I'm not mistaken, was the right to vote for those 18 and over versus those at 21 before that, I think. And it takes, I think, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since my government classes, it's either 2/3 or 3/4 of the states to ratify a change to an amendment to get it to go forward. And at that time, started out as a grassroots movement among young people that moved forward and pushed all the way up and got that done. If our if the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms comes to a point where that is a necessity, then I think, yes, absolutely, let's all stand up and be accounted for at that point in time. But at this point in time, nothing of that has happened. And I know we have, gun laws and stuff are being enacted and changed and varied depending on the circumstances that are going on at the time. But it has not taken away from our ability to bear arms. So if that, at this time, I think that doing something like this is just wasted time and space. The most it's going to do is be written down in our notes somewhere and go off and be part of dust for years to come. If ever there is a situation where a need arises because that right is being taken advantage of or brought down, then yes, by all means, let's deal with it at that point in time.
Other deliberation from council? Comments, questions? Then I'll make a statement for myself. And I speak tonight as a person who has a concealed pistol license. And I've gone through the training required to obtain that. I believe that most of our citizens who take the time to learn how to use their guns so that they can obtain a concealed pistol license are extraordinarily responsible individuals. And I have a high respect for the Constitution. I have lost count of how many times I've taken an oath of office that I will uphold the Constitution. And I stand by that. I think the Second Amendment speaks clearly for itself. And as long as I am the Chief Administrative Officer at Perry, I will endeavor to act within the boundaries of that law. It is my opinion that this resolution is not warranted at this time. While I certainly respect the Second Amendment, I just don't see this as being something that serves the interests of the city. Anything else from council in light of my comments or anybody else's comments?
No, that's why I waited for everybody to be able to get a say on it.
This stays on the agenda until council takes some kind of action. Does anybody want to make a motion of any sort?
I move that we take this off of the agenda and that we leave it as a non-issue at this time.
Support.
Moved by Elliott, seconded by Cantrell, to table discussion about becoming a Second Amendment sanctuary city indefinitely. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please vote
No.
no. Did you just say no?
I said, yeah.
Okay, then this requires a roll call vote. Councilwoman Galvin.
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Estrella.
Yes.
Councilman Grass.
Yes.
Councilman Elliott.
Yes.
Councilman Wood.
No.
The vote is 5 yes, 1 no. Motion carries. This matter is tabled indefinitely. We'll move to discussion of possible amendments to council rules and procedures. Mr. Wood?
So this issue came up with when COVID first started, we had to get some attorney opinions on something, and typically I know that the rules that were put in place for council was to limit the access to attorney and legal expenses, which I totally understand, fully support that. We don't need to just run to the attorney every time we turn around. However, the way it sets right now, if there ever is a disagreement, the only way this council can get that approval is solely through access through the mayor. So what I was hoping to suggest as we talked with Mr. Wood and others, that perhaps we could amend that if there are 3 councilmen in agreement, that would allow us to get access to an attorney opinion without a council meeting, but it would also require more than just one of us going and getting the attorney opinion, which would allow there to be a little bit more flexibility in this area. And so I guess that's where we come to. Do we want to amend the rules to our the agreement of 3 council members, whether that be through the city clerk or through some other means, has access to a legal opinion? And this is not a, just to be clear, this is not a tag against James or anything of that sort. I'm not saying James did anything here. I just want to be clear about that. But there could be, I could see where that could be a problem, whereas elected council has no access to an attorney, the mayor could deny it, and there'd be nothing you could do about it except come to a meeting. And I don't necessarily think that's what you have to do to get a legal opinion if you have 3 councilmen agreeing. So.
No, okay, I think you clarified. I was going to say, council absolutely has the ability to get an attorney's opinion, whether a mayor objects or not at any time. The city attorney works for the city council.
Sure, but at this point, it has to be a meeting.
Yes.
At this point, we have to have an actual meeting and have a vote on it,
Yes.
or go through you.
So
That's
how
the way to get it.
do we do this different than, how do we get 3 councilmen to be able to okay it without having to do this? asking.
Yeah, all you have to do is amend the rules, and that's what I'm saying, is I don't think that you should have to have an act and pass an ordinance, or what, not even an ordinance, but have a motion in the middle of an agenda meeting to get an attorney's opinion if the mayor doesn't want you to have it.
No, I know. I don't think I understand myself clear. How would we amend what is said already to allow us to do that? How would we go about getting, like, minus a meeting, getting 3 people, say, it would be like ability to call someone.
Well, that's something we can discuss, I mean, or write a letter, or make a statement, however.
That's what I was
council
wondering,
sees
what
fit.
your thoughts.
I mean, I'm not real, I think it'd need to be, there'd have to be at least confirmation. If it was going through Devin, she would have to have confirmation of some sort. Of course, I would want to discuss that with her, whatever makes it easier on her, but come to create more work for her. And I'm not even saying it would be an issue that would come about a lot, but if it does, it would be nice to have that option, in my opinion.
The way it currently works right now is the council would have to request the mayor to go, okay, and do it, and that would take 4 council members. And that puts quite a bit of weight away from the council members, where they don't have quite any control there. And what we were saying is maybe if 3 guys, or 3 ladies, I'm sorry, better add them in there, goodness gracious, wanted an opinion, then they could, and we felt it'd have to be at least 3 that needed that opinion, because 1 could go there and cause just a lot of hectic problems and a lot of money to the city. If it's 3, then it's a problem.
Yeah. And you're gonna need at least 3 to pass something if you're got an issue that you need.
Yeah, well, you gotta have 4 to get, to get the mayor to go get an opinion. And this just makes it a little easier to get to an opinion from the attorney if the council members felt they wanted it.
And so the idea is basically giving the council access to this without having to have a meeting, but yet keeping safeguards in place to where we couldn't just go up there and run up attorney fees, because I think the city's had problems with that in the past, where councilmen have went up and just,
The
every time they
current
turn
rule
around.
was put in place at a time when there was factions on the city council. At that time, the faction was a faction of 2 and a faction of 4. And the faction of 2 used their position to repeatedly run to the city attorney. So Councilman Wood was there at the time. Council decided that in order to control costs for the city, that they would adopt the current procedure. I think there's a lot of merit in the current procedure, because it leaves council in control, but it also requires that council act as council. We're suggesting that we change the rules so that less than council can act as council. 3 members, without consultation to their other 3 colleagues, can go out and obtain attorney opinions. And I think there's a lot of merit in a recognition that city council holds its power as a body. You come together, you deliberate, you discuss, you make your points, and you vote to determine what the correct way to go is. And that is how the legislative power commonly works in these situations. The other thing that I think you need to give some thought to is Open Meeting Act implications.
Yeah, that was my question.
What
Like,
if
can
3
we-
council
can
members...
3 council members talk about that, and we're gonna be in violation of those?
I don't think he was saying that, though.
3 council members
You're
are
just
set-
needing
serve
three
on-
verbals to request it, no different than when you're asking, you have to have 2 council to call a special.
Yes.
I would think you would follow something in that same order as how you call a special,
Okay,
is that you're not getting a round of a meeting.
okay. So that could, so there's a way around that, that we would be in
I think it would
violations of
have to
the
be worked on. I'm not saying it
Yeah,
would
that
work
that
or
was,
not,
that was
I'm
my.
just, that's the only comparable that I could see of what Adam was just saying, to give an example and to not avoid a quorum, not avoid 3 people calling, once the permission is in, asking the same question, which means the city's getting billed for the same question again. And then, yes, I think the mayor's right. So 3 people have asked for this information. Somehow you're gonna have to figure out your wording of transmitting it, and it would have to probably go through the clerk again, so you're not doing a quorum, that everybody gets the information. So this would be a work in progress. I don't have the answers for this
I'm
at
not
all.
saying,
But 3 on this, having 3 to, now, you have 3, if I'm not mistaken, you have 3 on work, right?
3 on work.
So 3, you
3
would not
on
be in
work
violation,
groups,
which is not a
but-
violation.
And Councilman Elliott was asking a question, what's a quorum? A quorum of the city council is 4 members.
4 out of
But
6.
But let me ask this question. If we have a council member who is seeking to get a question before the city attorney and happens to call one other council member who says, no, I don't think so, I'm not with you, I won't sign off on that. And you continue to call around and you end up finding two others, now you've involved in a conversation about this question for council members. And there's the risk that you inadvertently create a round-robin discussion about it.
Hey, you guys are missing it, I'm sorry. It's not gonna go without coming before the council, talk to the board. If it's a problem that affects three of us, it's something that we feel pretty strong about. What we're saying is, we don't think it should take a vote of 4 to do it.
Get a legal opinion. The case being is whenever the COVID issue came up. There was a legal question that come up. We were under the impression that Mayor Pro Tem could get it. She could not, and there was not going to be a legal opinion until James approved it. Now, James approved it, and so I want to be clear on this. James went ahead and said, give the opinion. So, but that rose the question in my mind, what if you have a situation where the mayor's going to say, no, you're not going to do that? Well, then then if it's a sensitive issue, in this case it was, we're sitting here waiting, we can't even do nothing for the next 2 weeks until we have a council meeting, and then have to argue it out there. If you got 3 people asking for opinion, you should have it. I mean, that's just the
Or
story.
we call a special meeting.
We call
Or
it
you call
special
a special
meeting.
meeting.
Yeah, within 24 hours, you can call.
It was
special
just
meeting.
taking one more off it, so getting 4 votes is a little tougher than 3. It just opens the door, if there's a problem out here in the council, that they can get it sent to the mayor, or to the lawyer, with less power. I mean, 4 sometimes gets a little difficult to get people agreeing to that. But 3 is enough of a problem that I really think if they wanted the opinion of the attorney, I think they should be able to get it. Now, I do not say they should go on their own. I don't think they should go as a group. We don't do that. I have no problem with it being debated in a council meeting. What I want to say is if 3 of us at the council say, I want an opinion, it should happen. Not have to go through the vote of 4. It's just relinquishing a little tiny bit back to where we could get an opinion just a little bit easier if we wanted.
A little faster.
Yeah, and I don't see any problem with it, I really don't. We did have some people abusing that, and we did have to address it, and we did. But I don't, if we'd have had that in place, what I'm talking about right now, they couldn't have abused it then.
So what you're basically saying is switching the current resolution from needing 4 votes to needing 3 votes, basically.
It can't be votes.
It's not really good, it's just that they have
Well, I'm
3
saying,
council members.
so we can have a special meeting with 2 people, so we can have a special meeting, because if we don't have a special meeting, what James is saying and what Devin is saying is the chances are that you
Stock
could
market.
become in violation of the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah, 3
I'm not
doesn't,
advocating
3 doesn't
that.
that. 3 doesn't do that, because you have 3 on special work groups that doesn't.
No, I know, but what the problem is if you call, email individuals to try and get that 3 votes, and one of the first calls you make doesn't say yes, then you're going to 4 people.
But these
And that
individual
means-
conversations constitute, so if I talk to you, and I can tell you right now, I know this whole council's in violation of that, if that's how you apply it.
That's what I'm asking, is that how it is applied?
I mean,
As
we
a
did have an
round
attorney
robin,
here, but I
yes,
mean,
it
it's,
Yes,
none
it
of-
would be.
so individual conversations violates the media,
If you're
If you're
deliberating
go- if
business
you're-
coming
if
before
you're
the
go-
council.
Yeah, and you're going person to person to person, you don't all have to be in the same room, but someone can go to this one, to this one, to this one,
well,
to
then
this
this whole
one.
council's guilty of that right now.
Yeah.
And I openly said, the whole council's guilty of that.
So what, they're gonna send us home now?
It's not ending all conversations,
But-
it's deliberating.
Well, you are by
on
association,
matters
because
coming
I'm
before
sure that there's been people
Yeah.
coming to me talking about something,
Yeah.
whether you know it or not, you're guilty of it.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about, like the funny snowman, because we weren't going to pass a resolution or spend money or have this, snowman's in the right of way as a point of discussion. So that is not. But if we were going to next week be voting on whether people can build snowmen in the right of way, then that discussion we had via text about that would have been in violation.
Sure, but I don't think that's what any of us are talking about. That's certainly not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is if something comes up and we need an opinion from the attorney, I think 3 of us would be able to request it and get that. Because if not, as it stands, I mean, if 2 of us can call a special meeting, why in the world can't 2 of us get an opinion from the attorney? I mean, to me, that's absurd. We can force everybody to be here, You know, because then again, if you call a special meeting, there's no guarantee anybody's gonna be here. So to me, I don't understand how there's this grave concern over 3 requests for it whenever you used to be able to do it individually. Other than the cost of
See,
money on
what
the
it is,
side.
it just says you don't have to really have a vote. If you got 3 people interested in an opinion, then it should be sent to the lawyer for an opinion, interpretation.
I think
Is there any instance that illustrates the problem you're concerned about?
Yeah, the one we gave was COVID, yeah, because there was an issue, I forget exactly what it was, but
But there wasn't, the question was submitted, and I immediately
Yeah,
sent it on to the
but that's the
secretary.
point, that's the point. It couldn't be submitted until you did, it, and that's the problem. That's where I have a concern.
My sense of the council was that you would want that question answered.
Sure,
Pay
and
close
I've
attention
stated,
to what you guys say and the positions that you take.
sure, and I've
And
stated,
I
and I'll-
generally can have a sense when this is a factional thing, somebody's just trying to make a single point, or when it's something the council wants an answer. And so the way I've always exercised the authority given under the council's rules is to pay attention to council and say, if I have a sense that council's gonna want this opinion, they shouldn't have to have a vote. And I'm gonna forward this on and give them the opinion that they want. If I chose not to do that, then I'm gonna end up in a huge fight with the city council, and I am utterly ineffective as mayor if I'm fighting with the city council.
sure, and I think I've been
Would
clear
pick
on this
that
too,
fight
James,
would
is
be
that,
an absolute fool. But, I mean, if you guys want to change the rules, you can do it. The mayor's certainly not at any risk on your proposed change of the rules. I have some concerns if there's a reason why this should be done, and council members will have to behave carefully, make sure that they don't engage in a round robin in violation of the Open Meetings Act. And if they can manage that, good for them. If they fail to manage that, they're in trouble, the mayor's not.
I'm not saying that they go out on their own and decide to do this. You can't do that, okay? But if you got some people in here in this council that want an opinion, and it's, like he says, 2 really should, if they were adamant, should be able to get an opinion, but 3 it takes away the voting, and it takes away, it gives up a little bit easier access if we want an opinion.
we get a little quicker. One of the 3 determine who's gonna go. I would suggest, letting the clerk know that there's 3 of us. I would like for you to please schedule an appointment with the attorney.
See, and when you talk Open Meetings Act, okay, and you'll have to help me out on this, because it's been a while since I read it. But in my opinion, because when we talk and run into each other, we talk about issues. And there's nothing wrong with that in my opinion, okay? What you can't do is go out and actively recruit and say, you're gonna vote for this, I want you to vote this way, and go from member to member. I believe that's where it's way out in left field.
Right.
which I wouldn't say that, I mean, if it's deliberating issues in a private setting, I would say no, it. I mean, we're citizens, I mean, things come up when we run past one another.
Well,
I run into you all the time, Eric, and I
we're
run into
gonna
others, you know,
discuss issues.
people talk about things, I mean, that's,
But in that group of 3, or however many that you would go, and I'm just playing the devil's advocate here.
sure.
Okay.
That group of 3 is deciding to spend money. You're deciding to spend city money by asking for an attorney opinion. So you are doing something.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the reason this was put into place, if I'm gathering what you're saying, was because that's exactly what people were doing when 2 were involved. And
Individuals used to be able to do it, because that's my, correct me if I'm misunderstanding,
Well,
individuals.
There was no rule in place.
I'm
So
not
there was
saying
no
so.
big question. When
We
an
don't-
individual council member would submit a question to the city attorney, and the practice was that the city attorney would respond to any question submitted by any council member, until the council decided that it was creating too much of a financial burden and made a rule to bring an end to that.
Which I would
guess
agree.
my question I would ask, Terry, you keep talking about staying away from a vote. What's wrong with the vote? Council acts by voting. We shouldn't treat it as if it's a negative thing. The council would vote.
Well, I have no problem with that, but I didn't like the idea of having 4 people vote yes in order for to get it there. Because if it's an issue that's affected 3 of us, we're in 3 different areas of the city, then it's an issue that's probably pretty important. I mean, it's 60%, isn't that right? Yeah, it'd be 60% of the people. those three people represent?
50%.
You each represent.
How many,
100% of
six,
the
oh, I thought there's seven, okay.
We got-
50% of the people. That's still a lot of people, you know? I mean, I go and I talk to people throughout the city on different issues that come here. That's how I know what they want, that I deal with and talk with. That ordinance issue on brush, after I got caught dead left field, I went around and started finding some people, and some older people to find out about it. That's how I figure it out. I'm just saying we ought to be able to just say, hey, there's three of us concerned about this, and I'm not saying go to them without the mayor knowing it, or even without the rest of the council knowing it. It's just we say, hey, we would like to get an opinion from the lawyer, and three guys say that, then it should go there.
Well, you opened the door for three to go without the mayor knowing about it, or the other councilman.
I'm not opening the door.
Sure you are. You create a rule that says the city attorney shall respond to any request from three council members. There's no mandate in there that those three council members notify their colleagues.
You have to notify the council if you get a legal opinion?
I do not. But
So what's
when
the
we
difference?
obtain a legal opinion, it's presented to council.
Well, I'm not saying you don't, just to be clear, I'm not making an accusation against you, I'm just saying I don't see what the difference is between, you know, between you being able to do it without, or without us knowing versus the council doing it without you knowing.
I would think the difference would be.
See, I think the difference, I don't think you should go to the attorney for an opinion without us knowing.
I'm not trying to hide anything, I'm just, all I'm saying is I think there would be a little more balance here. Right now,
I disagree
he
with
doesn't
that.
say.
By the way, number one, the mayor is the one who's consistently in the office and knowing what's going on in the day-to-day business. None of us are. And so yes, if something comes up, he needs to get that opinion so that we can get it to the next council meeting.
But what I'm saying is that he can get that opinion and not inform you at all.
Yes, but that's typically, I mean, so consistently has that been an issue?
I'm not saying it has been, but what I am saying is what was an issue, we did want an opinion, and we had to wait for him to tell the mayor, give the green light, get it.
Well, let me
Well,
suggest,
unless we go and vote as a council.
Unless you have a meeting,
Yeah. and
which is
so-
in the midst of COVID.
let me suggest an alternative way to maybe address this council. Would council be satisfied if we change the rule to say either the mayor or the mayor pro tem can go to the city attorney and get an opinion? Would that sufficiently address the question?
I would
I
still,
still like the
Under
three,
the
I
city
still
charter, the
prefer
mayor is the
three.
administrative.
I still like the
officer
three
in
council
a
members.
certain
Yeah.
position.
Carrie and
If
Adam, like, I can see where you're getting at, and I can see the really good idea behind this mechanism. You know, that we are fortunate to have a mayor that is upfront, and no diss to our next mayor, but, you know, if in the future we had a mayor that wasn't as forward, then having that ability to have three would be very useful.
absolutely.
This has been on the agenda for a long time, and I really hate more than anything of saying, let's kick something down the road, but I would really like an opportunity to go through the Open Meetings Act really well. I'd like a real opportunity to go through how we call special meetings, the time involved. Does somebody have to physically be here, or can they vote by proxy if they already know what the issue is? You know, to feel really good about that, so that this group of three can do that in a way that we're not gonna bump into it, because I do think it's a good idea. I would just want to make sure that we can do it.
And I have no problem, I would touch it
Yeah,
on board
does
for
that
that.
make sense?
Because one of the
Does that
questions
make
I have is,
sense?
because to me, it's still unclear about the Open Meetings Act. To me, it seems awful rigid, and I'm not 100% persuaded that it's applied that way. If I have a because I'm telling you, I know for a fact that this council is in violation of that. Because I know that there's been individual conversations, I'm not talking about going out and lobbying votes, that's not what I'm talking about, just to be clear. But there is passive conversation when we run into one another, it has happened.
That's not a violation of open meeting.
But that's what we're talking about, the round robin, calling this one and talking to that one, if that's a violation of open meeting
Look,
act.
no, I didn't say that. I said if
That's how I
they're walking
understood
and you bump into each other, you converse about issues, okay?
Sure, I don't do, and that's the,
But if I'm going out and calling each one of you, one after the other, that's bypassing the
Yeah,
council.
that's
sure.
And we're
But
talking
that-
about.
But that's lobbying, I'm not talking
That's
about
when
lobbying.
which is going to be suggested, because how else, I mean, maybe you get two, but if by the time you go to try and get the third, to see if this is something of this essence.
Because you're not lobbying a position, you're just wanting an opinion, you're not arguing for a position, you're saying, hey, we want to know what the
But
book
you're
term says on
but
this.
you're asking to spend money.
Genevieve
And
has
that's
got the
piece
right
that
idea.
Sure, I agree with that.
I'm looking
I didn't-
at. Can we, so even if it's a group of three, if it's three saying that they're going to spend money, I feel like I really want to read up on this, guys.
I have no problem with
I
that.
really
You're
do.
absolutely, that would
Because
be
if
the
we're
only
gonna do this, let's
hesitancy.
make it
I
right.
don't
Put this
have
to
no
rest,
problem with
folks. We didn't want a decision tonight. We wanted debate. We wanted you to get educated and say, hey, this is the thing that's bothering us.
Yeah.
I'm not telling you gotta do something about this.
Yeah.
I would like to read the Open Meetings Act again because I made some statements here, and I believe that's the way it is.
Okay.
But I guess I'd like to read it again to make sure I'm right.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's
Oh.
double check
Yeah.
ourselves, yeah.
I could see going on something like this and being okay with it. If, like going from 4 to 3 possibly, if there was a meeting, I still struggle with the idea of just 3 people, 3 of us out in the public getting together as far as council members and being able to do this. If there's that much of an issue, I think it needs to be brought before council to deal with, not just 3 people go off and, because that's going to create factionalism, just like what was happening before. We're bringing it to council at a special meeting at least, allows for us to come together and deal with these situations and find out what the facts are and get to the bottom of it. And maybe we don't need an opinion by the time we're done with that. We save ourselves, the city, I don't know how
I
much does
understand
it
saving
cost.
money, I don't like the idea that you can be withheld an opinion to make an appropriate decision. Because sometimes you need that opinion to be able to make a decision.
Yeah.
And if you're being denied that, you gotta have a meeting to do it. I mean, in this case, it was, in the case that brought the issue up, was a time-sensitive issue.
Mhm.
And it was right in the midst of, there's nobody meeting in public, I mean, this was whenever
That was-
52 was bare.
That's
Nobody was gonna come to a meeting in that. I mean, we just now started getting back on the hill thing. So, and
I mean-
and I understand that's a rare
And that's an
situation.
extremely rare situation, obviously, which is causing this, and it could come up. But, again,
So,
this has been switched one time already, or added to one time, why, now we're gonna switch it again for one situation, and it, I don't know.
You always try to make it better.
So we've got a lot of business ahead of us. Do we have a consensus that we're gonna leave this no action taken for now and will remain on your agenda?
Yes, but I'd like to make a request, Ms. Devlin, if I could.
Go ahead.
Not knowing where my open rules be, can you look that up and put it in our packets? And maybe even the rules for council members, so we all got that?
I'd suggest giving him the Attorney General's write-up on the Open Meetings Act. It's much easier and more informative to read than trying to sit there and read through the act itself.
Could you do that for us, Ms. Devlin? Thank you, I appreciate it.
I'm glad you guys are finally here and we get a chance to chat about it. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So, no objection to leaving this as no action taken?
No?
Correct.
Very good. And we'll do so, and we'll move to possible resolution to adopt water and sewer rates. That'll probably be on the agenda for the next meeting, Devin, we'll have that motion ready.
We can try it, yes.
Okay.
I mean, John,
We'll talk to John and ask him to get that ready so that it can be available for council to vote. And that'll take us to our next, actually, do I have council's consent to leave possible resolution to adopt water and sewer rates as no action?
Yes.
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 So that'll move us to our final item of old business, possible approval of McQueen House repairs.
Where's-
Terry, did you find the money for this?
I didn't find the money. You don't want me looking for that money. I disappeared to California or something. No, I don't want it. That state's burning up.
Well, Joanne and I did a little bit of work, and we did find some of the money for you.
Yeah, I
Here
was,
to the unfortunate death of George Eaton, a former city employee, who was entitled to longevity pay in December, which was $4,800 and which was included in your budget. There is $4,800 in the budget that was intended to be spent for longevity that can now be reallocated for another purpose. Joanne didn't do this, but I found another $500. If Terry will donate his salary for the next year on the condition that it goes to the Queen House, there's another $500. So that gets you to $5,300. You're meeting 98. So can you find another?
well, I think Joanne pointed out a couple, 3 of them there. I think we can come up with it. But
$4,500.
I can't go into that and try to find money. I'd be baffled. I'm not a accountant. So I asked Joanne, I sat down with her for a few minutes, and I asked her to do some looking and digging and see what she could find. She had several suggestions. Was it Chuck you said that aged out?
It was Georgie.
Oh, George.
It was
Okay, I thought
George
you
that
said Chuck.
passed. Was for 4,800. It's a little early in the budget season to find where we're gonna have surplus, seeing as how we're just starting the first quarter. We had,
But I don't think this is about finding a surplus. This is about
Right.
reallocating our resources. Making a decision where we look for $4,500 we were gonna spend in some other way and say, McQueen House is a higher priority than this other expenditure. And so the question becomes, what is it we want to sacrifice to get this? So I was looking to you, Terry, to suggest to council how we might reallocate our funds. Do we reduce part-time wages to the police department? Say, well, we're gonna have a little less coverage, but this is more important. Or do we reduce the general fund contribution to office pool and say, well, for a year, we're not gonna buy new office equipment? Or what is the lower priority that we set? And I really don't think it's appropriate to set that on the shoulders of the city treasurer, because the treasurer doesn't set the priorities, council does. So I'm looking to council to say what the lesser
When I
priority
was
is.
talking to Joanne, she said that we were gonna end up with a plus surplus, okay? Now, what that is irrelevant to me, because I don't know what it is.
well,
But
a portion of it is the expenditures for the McQueen House. There was $16,000 budgeted, and part of that, a big portion of that did not get spent. So what happened was that money went back into fund balance. So when we get the bills, they're going to be coming in this year's budget. We're gonna have to make budget amendments for it. Even after we've balanced all our budget, now we're gonna have to make budget amendments for the expenditures that are coming, for the painting and the flashing.
So in other words, a surplus this year is just simply gonna get
It's
spent
just carried
in
over from
meeting our
last year.
commitments to the McQueen House from last year. We're gonna
Well-
spend it this year.
we also have that money from the sale of the land out there, and I know, give me time, I don't want you to get on the floor, we'll get it back in. And I know that we gotta sit on it in case we end up having to pay it back, I understand that. But it would buy us time to get it locked in and get this stuff taken care of, and then it give us the budget in the spring to work on covering it and putting it back in that money.
I passed out to
I think
council
we
a
already
copy of the summary that we received when we do the budget. And so when we look at this, you see that we come into the year with a fund balance of $466,452.70. That includes the surplus from the 2018-2019 year, which is the year we received $48,000 for the land up there. We enacted a budget that proposes to spend a deficit of $42,000, using up most of that money. What we're talking about, if we say, well, we're gonna take it from the land money, is increasing the deficit and reducing the amount in savings. And my concern with that is that the reason we have a deficit budget this year is because our projected revenue sharing from the state is down substantially, and I don't know when that's gonna turn around. So that's why I've been advocating related to the McQueen House. It's appropriate to make it a priority, but I don't think we should increase the deficit. We should reprioritize. We should look for other things that we want to say, this is less important, and this is where we can come up with the money. And between the treasurer and I, if you would donate your salary, we found more than half of that for you. But we can look to you in proposing this, Terry, to suggest where else we might cut to get the additional $4,500 needed. But council can decide to spend it out of the general fund balance if that's what you guys think is appropriate.
So there's no way to cover that, Joanne, is what you're saying?
want to cut, Terry?
There would have to be cuts. There would have to be something cut. Or we would increase the deficit to our fund balance. In other words, the fund balance that we carry over will be smaller. Because we're gonna be spending that down unless we make cuts. Either in
Well, that's
supplies.
really, you're talking completely different than when you sat with me. It sounded like you'd be able to come up to it and get it without hurting anybody.
Well, the $50,000 that we had, yeah, we had the $50,000 from the sale of that property, but we're spending it in this year's budget. In other words, we're decreasing down our fund balance, well, on $43,000. So there's still $7,000 left of that $50,000. If you want to do that, we can spend down our fund balance.
The other option
Pretty
is to
slow.
wait
We
till the
did
end.
that, what would it do to us?
Well, we have projected at the end of this year, we're going, at the end of this budget cycle, we're gonna have 424,000. And if we spend 9,000 of that, we're gonna have what, 413,000, 414, 15,000. And if they want us to have so many months of operating expense, because, you know, I know that sounds like a lot of money, but in the year that we have July, August, September, the bulk of our money comes in, and that money has to take us from September, October, November, December, January, but that has to take us for the whole year until we get the tax revenues in again in July and August. So they want us to have at least 6 months of operating expenditure as a safety net, so we don't run out of money.
What's our monthly expenditures then for the city approximately?
Oh,
Like 100,000, 75?
It
Yeah.
varies every month.
I know, I just,
Yeah, it could be around 100,000, but you have to remember, with our budget, we have the revenues that come in. They don't all come in like the first day of July.
yeah.
They come in throughout the year.
Mhm.
So, and it's the same with the expenditures. We have payroll twice a month. We have the general operating expense. And general fund has we have one checkbook. So general fund writes the check for motor pool, for water, for sewer, for all these other funds, and then it gets reimbursed at the end of the month. So there could be a $40,000 sewer project, there could be, you know,
Mhm.
it just
Those things all
it just
cost
depends.
vary. So
Right,
we're-
it just depends. So I would say under 100,000
Okay,
to be safe.
that's fair. So when you're thinking a $400,000 thing right now, approximately that's
That's gotta be-
Yeah, it's about
4
4
months. And we're supposed to have 6 months, so we're dwindling on that
Yeah.
very
So I
fine
mean,
edge.
there's been times when I've had to ask the department heads to put off, I mean, they think the 1st of July rolls around and they have a new budget and they're ready to go and spend that money and it's not there yet.
Yeah.
You know, the fund balance that we have from the year before is what we have.
Mhm.
We haven't started receiving the revenues or the taxes or the sales tax that's a big portion of what our revenues are. Those haven't come in yet. And I politely asked him, can you guys like please put up buying stuff for at least 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Okay. And, you know, and they're good with it, so.
Now, there's some stuff in the works that we're hoping for. There was a substantial amount of grant money to reimburse for wages. We got an application in for about $80,000, which would go a long way. It might change your analysis of this. There's also the possibility that the enhanced unemployment benefits get reinstated. And when those were in place, the city, by adopting the work share, have you got the word for me, Devin, the work share furlough program? Thank you. We were able to save a little over $20,000 a month. And since council authorized me to do that, if the enhanced employment benefits come into place again, I will reinstitute that program and generate some savings. But all those things at this time are speculative. We're hoping to get that money, but we don't have it yet, which is why, again, I'm advocating for, this can be an appropriate priority, but I think the responsible choice is to identify areas that we can set as a lower priority, cut the expenditures to that area, find the $4,500, and then you put this in place. And I don't think we can let this sit and wait and see if the grant money comes through, because I think that the McQueen House has some urgency on moving forward with this.
I have another question. If the full amount was spent on the McQueen House, this $9,800, what would that do pertaining to having money available for this project with the township?
Well, the project, the money for the township is gonna come from water and sewer, I would imagine. So I don't know
So
that
that
it
would
would
be a
come
whole
from,
different,
I don't think it would come from general fund.
so it wouldn't affect that.
I don't think it would affect it.
And it's not increasing the general fund deficit, so it's spending money on the stuff.
I have a question for Billy. If you had the 4,900, would that fix that corner that's in such bad shape?
I can contact the contractor and speak with him about that, yes, and see if we could get that corner where the gutters leak so badly, and I showed you where the stones were out.
Gonna
Maybe
be damage inside if something's not done with it.
Right, and if we can get that corner in time for winter, maybe we can come back to it in the spring. But I would assume that once we enter into a contract with them, I can get them to bid just the corner and bring that back to council. I don't know what that expense would be. I would have to speak to him.
You could make a down payment and then lock in the cost right now, wouldn't it, for next year?
He asked for half down, yes. The contractor's bid that we submitted was for the $9,800, and they are asking for $4,900 down payment, and then the balance due on completion and satisfaction.
And they aren't gonna be doing that this year now at this late stage, are they?
Well, we're desperately wanting to get the southwestern corner of the building secured. Once the shrubs were removed, the extent of water damage, especially in the southwestern corner of the building, is pretty extensive. We have some large cornerstones that are relatively loose, and we have the gutters on now, and we're not going to have any more erosion, but the damage is there, and that corner, I have 3 bids here, and every contractor spoke extensively to me about the southwest corner of the building and their concerns about it.
So if we could get you that 4,900, it'd lock in that price, because if we don't take this quote by spring, it's gonna be up. I don't know how
can't
much it
speak
goes up.
to that, but I think I can put the down payment down on it. I'll get John involved and get that corner tied in, and then postpone the rest of it till spring.
Well, what I'm getting at is maybe that would give us the next budget, which is in the spring, to work on the remaining $5,000-6,000.
Well, much of the foundation is still covered by that plaster or the mortared skim coat,
Yeah.
which is all going to come off and the stonework be redone. It's been there an awfully long time.
Well, I seen, Billy, I've seen that corner. It's bad. You need something done, or else the work that you've done is gonna be for naught. I mean, you can't let the foundation rot out. No matter how nice you make the house, the foundation ain't there, it's not very nice.
But it was very hard to see all that with the big spirea plants. But once John and the crew removed everything, it became very apparent that that needs work. It needs a lot of work.
So,
And you can see
but if
that from the inside as well, correct?
There are spots in the cellar where you can see that we need to get in there and get it done. But that southwest corner is extremely important that we get dug down there and get that corner tightened back up before there's any more damage.
Well, does this council think we can find 5,000 in the next budget in the spring?
There's no budget in the spring, you're talking about July 1, so
Yeah.
it's a much longer delay than you're suggesting.
I think if you wait till the next, when we start working on the budget next time, you're probably going to have surpluses in a multiplicity of lines in which you could pull the money from. I mean, there's no doubt, I went through it with John, there's no doubt that the foundation is crumbling. That needs
That's what
to
I'm
be
saying, if some of these things he spoke of come through, what I'm looking at is buying some time and shoring up so damn corner darn corner that slipped out.
Wow.
I apologize.
Well, let's just find some cuts in the budget,
Send it
and
to
then
the
if the other
corner.
money
Send
comes
it to
through,
the
you can
corner.
restore the cuts you get. Just take a look through the budget and tell us what you want to cut to come up with this money, Terry. It's a tough decision, but I've made it for 8
Well, I
years doing
can't make
budgets.
that call, I'm not head of the
You certainly,
budget.
you certainly can propose cuts to council to come up with this money. What do you want to cut? Should we cut part-time police wages? Should we cut money going?
James, get off it.
Well,
Get off it.
no. You want to find
You're
this
trying
money,
to back
let's
me in the
find-
corner and I've had enough of it. Drop it.
I
I'm
have-
done.
You want to find the money, Terry, find it. And I will back you into the corner, because I've sat there enough times with you having your finger
Hey,
in my face
run the
saying,
meeting.
I don't like the decisions you make.
Run the
Council
meeting.
runs this town. Fine, run the town.
Point of order, run the meeting. I'm done. Whatever the council wants to do, make up your mind or whatever.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we have Billy, why don't you go ahead and get a bid to get that corner fixed? That'll give us some time to see, by the time we get to the end of the fiscal year, if there's some surplus in the lines, because I think you would agree with us that a $42,000 deficit is a big chunk of money.
I will contact the contractor tomorrow and get him out here for a second look, and I will talk with him about securing just the southwest corner on a separate bid. And then I'll have him rework the rest of the bid, and I'll bring that back to council as a separate part. But the whole thing is gonna have to be done.
Absolutely.
There were 3 contractors. I threw out the high bid. It was 3 times the one I put in front of you.
Yeah, I don't know. I went through the house, but I went through it with John, so I personally looked at it, and I've got a little bit of experience in this area, and it definitely, there's no question it needs
Well,
attention.
we're gonna be, it's mid-September now. I would be surprised if we could get into an extensive tuck point job on the home this fall anyway.
Yeah.
But I really wanna get that corner, when your cornerstone comes loose, it's time for repair.
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. It's crumbling and falling apart. The skim coat's falling out. I mean, there's no question.
The company that you're looking at on your paperwork there has 64 years worth of experience in Lansing and in the area, and they're really excited about doing the project, so I'm sure he'll work with me.
Yeah. So if you do that, I would say we can go ahead and get us a bid on the corner. I'd be willing to move forward with that, and then we can see what about the rest of it when we get a little closer to the fiscal year, because some of these grants coming to be a little easier.
Put a sign in the yard.
And so you know, Billy, we found up to 5,300 already.
All right.
Which eliminates the discussion.
I will call him first thing in the morning. And just so you all know, please keep your eye on the building. Most of the white is complete. The contractors expect to start putting the color on first of the week. So, also, the electrical contractor is finished. Consumers Energy has tied in the new direct burial cable and set the pole, and the power is complete, and I have paid the contractor.
It's looking good, Billy.
Nice.
You're doing a great job.
And I just want to remind you that under your guidance and your approval, Perry Plumbing will be coming in shortly, right after the painters leave, and they'll be doing the plumbing work. John has put in the new main water line to the building because it was leaking, and Matt Grinnell is ready to get started on the plumbing. So we'll have that before the end of the year.
Thank you, Billy.
Thank you.
What's council want to do with this item? Is the consensus to leave it no action taken for this time?
The Queen House repairs,
Yes.
I would say we should be able to have a bid by next meeting, right?
I will have something for you at the next meeting. Absolutely.
I recommend that we table it till next council meeting.
Do you want to formally table it or just leave it, no action taken?
No
Table it
action taken is
requires a
fine.
vote.
No action taken is fine.
Is everybody in agreement, no action taken?
Yes.
Yep.
Very good. And we will leave this as no action taken, it'll come up on the next agenda. That'll move us to new business. Possible approval of funds to share costs with Perry Township for engineering services.
I move that we approve I don't have the motion in front of me, but the expenditure.
Actually, there's been some new wording that I gave you.
I do not have it.
The exception in the wording that I gave all of council is just that it's adding the words, not to exceed the 2,000, because the agreement actually says it could be less than 2,000, depending on the word.
Mhm.
And so,
So you want this-
everybody got a
want this
copy
read?
of that, yes.
Yep. So whereas whereas the city has received a proposal dated September the 9th, 2020 from HRC Hubble, Roth and Clark Incorporated to include the scope of work included in said proposal, and whereas said proposal requests that the city of Perry share equally in the $4,000 cost to cover the scope of the work covered therein. So I move that we do that, but the cost is not to exceed $2,000. Of course, it ain't been resolved because we ain't voted yet, but, so not to exceed $2,000.
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
Second.
Moved by Grass, seconded by Cottrell. The motion from the city attorney has just read to approve the $2,000 for the engineering study. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please vote no. That will move us to the next item, which is possible resolution to adopt the transfer of funds from yard waste to motor pool. Evan, do you have a report for council on this?
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
So council approved the yard waste fees. And prior to this, as I had stated before, our office did a lot of work to help John in all different steps. One of them was to find out where this fee would have to go on the utility bill and what line item, and it has to go into general revenues, which I think I already shared that with you. The concern was that, to me, there was one more step, is what gives our treasurer the authority to make sure that what the plan was for this continues. And so I went to our city attorney and explained my situation, and the auditors. I had both of them involved because the auditor, we have to make sure that this is appropriate. They're the ones that told us that we couldn't put it directly in motor pool on the utility bill. And I wanted the strongest motion or resolution or ordinance to put it in place. Resolution can be put in your ordinance to coincide with that, so your rule will be in place. And what's in front of you is suggested that quarterly, when your treasurer already does amendments, those revenues and yard waste collected will be moved to motor pool. And so I believe that action needs to be taken to, motions tend to get lost. Resolutions are a little bit stronger and can keep it in place on an action that you guys have taken part in. So I recommend that you consider this resolution.
This is a formal action by council to mandate what you put fees for. The mayor can't simply take it and move it somewhere else. You mandated that it go towards the motor pool to pay for yard. So you are effectively putting in place rules that require that we do what you had voted.
We need a motion to do this to a resolution, correct? I move that we accept and approve the following resolution. Resolved that whereas the city of Perry does currently collect a sum of $4 per month per property from certain properties within the city for disposal of yard waste from said properties, and said funds are received into the general city fund, and whereas the Perry City Council has determined that the said yard waste fund should be transferred from the general fund to the motor pool fund quarterly. Therefore, the city treasurer is directed to transfer quarterly accumulated yard waste funds to the city motor pool fund on or before the last day of September, December, March, and June, commencing on December 15, 2020, and continuing during a quarterly budget transfer each year.
Second.
Thank you.
Moved by Cottrell, seconded by Grass, for the resolution as just read. Is there discussion?
That means we're gonna charge people, but we aren't gonna pick up all the trash, because if they have a tree commercially cut down, you're not gonna pick up the brush, but you're gonna charge him to pick up yard waste?
This resolution is not, it is already been, the fees you're talking about and what you're talking about was already approved.
I know.
This is telling that yard waste fees are now being put to resolve the problem, to fix the motor pool fund.
All we're doing is taking the fees that we're charging for yard waste and saying that they can be moved
I
to
get that.
motor pools so we can get it done.
I get that, but you're not gonna pick up brush that is commercially cut down.
That's under rules and regulations, and that's a whole nother issue.
Well, I just thought it was kinda, you know, some people are gonna get a little upset when they gotta pay to have yard waste taken out, but yet they can't get it taken out. They have to pay to get it done commercially.
Sure. But that's another I'm not arguing what you're saying.
Yeah, I just wanted
But that's
to-
not what the resolution is about. That's not what it's saying. It's not saying commercial, it's not saying anything.
This one ain't, no.
No.
No, I just wanted to bring it to light.
Okay.
That'd be a great time to do that when you get comments later on.
Further discussion? All those in favor, please vote yes.
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 All those opposed, please vote no.
No.
That'll require a roll call. Let's see, I gotta go in a different order than I did last time. So, Mayor Pro Tem Cottrell,
Yes.
Councilman Elliott,
Yes.
Councilman Wood,
No.
Councilman Grass,
Yes.
Councilwoman Galbraith,
Yes.
Councilman Powell.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-1. We will move to the next item of new business, which is possible approval of proposal for a city actuary report recommendation. This is part of the project that Mindy and I's work group worked on regarding post-retirement benefits. The goal of this actuarial study is to determine what kind of annual commitment the city needs to make to funding the funds that we're setting up to pay the cost of future post-retirement benefits. The actuary will give us what those numbers are going to be, and it'll be used in future budgeting process. In order to get that actuarial study, there's a cost, and so we're submitting it to council to ask for your approval to implement the plan we've discussed. Devin, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, the mayor asked me to ask for a proposal that's in front of you to get those figures, and we have called and set up a meeting for the mayor and Councilman Galvin to talk about setting the money in the trust, and this actuary is a piece once those funds are put into the proper trust.
So we're open for discussion, questions, comments, motions, whatever council's pleasure.
We need a motion, please? Yes?
Yes, please.
I move that we accept the proposal of the actuarial valuation services from Watkins, Ross and Company for an amount not to exceed $1,000.
Moved by Cottrell, seconded by Elliott, I think was slightly faster, to approve the resolution as just read. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please vote no. This will move us to discussion of possible approval regarding Halloween, city Christmas party, and Christmas fantasy. So this came out of my discussion with the city staff as they were looking for some direction on which way to go. Before we get too close to the Halloween event, they would like to know what city council's thoughts are on whether or not we allow trick-or-treating. Also, they will very soon begin work on planning for the city's Christmas party and the downtown Christmas fantasy event. And we don't want to waste the city staff time on pursuing something if council's not inclined to do those things. In other words, if you want to cancel it, we'd like to get the word before the staff puts a lot of work into it, before we start spending any money. And so, because we have time now, and we don't have to work it all out tonight, I wanted to get it in front of you guys for discussion, so you can begin to sort out what you think best serves the city. I did collect some additional information, and I left it on the tables. It wasn't included in your packet, but it's available for you to take home. It came to my attention out on social media around Perry that there has been a lot of discussion regarding Halloween, and so I had Dory print off the comments going out on Facebook groups regarding Halloween. I'm not suggesting to you that these comments necessarily represent a majority of people. They may not. But they do demonstrate a real significant grassroots thought process on what we should do with Halloween, very much in its favor. And we have not seen a similar kind of comment opposing having Halloween. So I gave it to you for your consideration. You can assign whatever weight you want to it. I stay in regular contact with Chris Evelyn, the mayor of Owasso, and he and I have discussed Halloween. And he let me know today that the city of Owasso has made a decision regarding trick-or-treating, and I have submitted to you their formal announcement on Facebook so that you guys could have a look at what the city of Owasso is thinking. That's all the additional information I have for you. So I'll open the floor up for questions, discussion, whatever council's pleasure is.
I don't see any reason why we would tell people what they can do and can't do. If they want to go around trick or treat, that's up to them.
I'll make a motion. I'll move that the council establish trick-or-treat hours in the city of Perry will be from 6 to 8 p.m. on October 31st, 2020.
Second.
Moved by Cottrell, seconded by Grass, that the Perry City Council set trick-or-treat hours for 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday, October 31st, excuse me. Is there discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. Motion carries. If council will give some thought regarding the Christmas events to what you want to do, and if I have your permission, I'd like to keep this on the agenda as no action taken. That way we can come back and discuss Christmas after you've had a little more time to observe that. May I have council's consent to leave it that way?
Yes.
You do.
Okay. And I don't mean to cut it off. Did anybody have anything they wanted to say about it tonight?
I do.
And that will move us to mayor's appointments.
Can I just add one small subject that we didn't talk about, Mayor, and that was the Christmas lighting contest? Because again, your judges, which could be done very simply, spread out in different cars, but that should be addressed too, so that's all.
So council will give that some thought, and we'll come back and talk about what council thinks is the best way to proceed with that this year. So that'll take us to mayor's appointments. And I'm sorry, Devin, I've forgotten some of the appointments that I had for them tonight. I don't have them written down in front of me. Do you have the list? Would you refresh my memory?
You don't have your list?
Joanne, Vic,
Well, I brought a lot of paper, but I didn't bring that one. I've been sitting here searching through that's last month's minutes. Okay, so the first appointment I have is a reappointment of Joanne Velting to the Perry Building Authority for a term to expire May of 2023. I submit the appointment to council for your advice and consent.
I move that we accept the mayor's reappointment of Joanne Velting to the Perry Building Authority with a term expiring May 2023.
Second.
Moved by Cottrell, seconded by Grass, to accept the appointment of Joanne Velting, reappointment to the Building Authority for a term to expire May of 2023. Is there discussion?
We can do a background check on her?
I hope so, she handles our money.
Only if yours is first there. Right. He has to go
Any
first.
further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say no. My next reappointment is Victor Darling to the Pension Committee for a term expiring in October of 2021. Victor has served on this committee for a long time. The committee has not been active in recent years because we haven't been looking at pensions, but we've been grateful for Victor's service. When called upon, he's done a good job for us, and I would like to keep him in that position. So I submit the appointment to you for your advice and consent.
I move that we accept the mayor's recommendation of Victor Darling to be appointed to the, what is it, retirement company?
Pension Committee,
Pension Committee, and a term to expire 2023, is that right?
October of 2021.
October of 2021.
Second.
Moved by Grass, seconded by Elliott, to accept the mayor's reappointment of Victor Darling to the Pension Committee for a term expiring October of 2021. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please vote no. Motion carries. I'll put these next two appointments together, and they can be dealt with in one motion. I've had the opportunity to get acquainted with Jennifer Porter here in our community. We've had many conversations, and she has expressed a desire to serve her community. I'm always grateful for anybody who wants to serve their community and all the countless citizens around here who do. And so I have kept my eye open, and I would like to appoint Jennifer Porter as a new member of the Perry Building Authority for a term to expire in May of 2021. She'll be replacing Scott Nover. And I would also like to appoint Jennifer Porter to the Board of Review for a term expiring in January of 2023. She'll be replacing Jean Howe. I submit the appointments to council for your advice and consent.
I move that we accept the mayor's appointment of Jennifer Porter to the Perry Building Authority for a term to expire May of 2021, and to the Board of Review for a term to expire January of 2023.
Second.
Moved by Cottrell, seconded by Grass, to accept the mayor's appointment of Jennifer Porter to the Perry Building Authority for a term expiring May of 2021, and to the Board of Review for a term expiring in January of 2023. Is there discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, please vote aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please vote no. Motion carries. That's all the appointments I have at this time. That will move us to any other business may come before council. This is the second opportunity during our meetings for members of the public to address the council on any matter that they may wish to address us on. Would any of the members of the public with us on Twitter like to be heard by council? If so, please raise your hand and indicate to the clerk. No? Would any members of the public with us here tonight like to be heard by council? Larry?
Just want to remind everybody that we've got the citywide yard sale activity starting tomorrow through Sunday. We have got 16 locations on the map. If this really serves to hold true, we'll probably have more yard sales than that. So we've had a pretty good turnout for a late start this year. So get out and support your community yard sales and get an opportunity.
Thank you, Larry.
All right.
Other members of the public, would anyone else like to address the council on any matter at this time? Seeing no other public comment, I'll close that section and I will ask council members. Do any council members have matters of business that need to come before you for council action tonight?
I know. I've been wondering, are we still doing the contest, and now I can't think of what it's called, where,
Prairie Pride.
for the, what?
Prairie Pride.
Yes. Are we still doing that?
Well, we got one
Well,
yet, so.
you guys selected
Yeah, this
people
was
to
my
do
one.
each month, but nobody has stepped up.
You know, I will give September's award on October 1st, or our first meeting in October.
Which is October 1st?
Okay. My month is October, and I will do it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nikki.
Okay.
Thank you, Chris.
Yes, and I apologize that I didn't do it for this month.
Any other items of business that need to come before council for action tonight? Seeing none, we'll move to council discussions and observations. Councilwoman McGillicuddy?
I'm kind of confused about the sign at the school. It always said kids crossing slow, go slow, and the flashing lights would be on in the morning. And I don't see them on anymore, and I was just wondering why.
I'd have to make an inquiry of the school, it's under their control.
So do it anyway, even though the signs aren't flashing. Be careful, the kids are going to school.
Any other discussions and observations from you?
No.
Thank you. Councilman Powell?
I did, boy, we would have been here for a while, but I don't have any right now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Councilman Grass?
I'm good, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Cottrell?
No, thank you.
Councilman Elliott?
No.
Councilman Wood?
No, I'm good.
I've said enough for tonight. We'll move to agenda items for the next meeting. So for the next meeting, we have discussion of possible amendment to council rules and procedures, possible resolution to adopt water and sewer rates. And let's take the word possible out of there and tell John we need to get this in front of him. Possible approval of McQueen House repairs. We will also have discussion regarding city Christmas party, Christmas fantasy, and Christmas lighting contest. Let's keep mayor's appointments on there. I've still got a couple of vacancies that I'm hoping and praying I'll find somebody for. Are there any other items for the next agenda that the council can think of at this time that I haven't listed? Devin?
The recommendation from planning commission about the rezoning,
Yes.
and also the ordinance amendment will be added.
Very good, thank you. Any other items for the next agenda? If agenda items come to council members' attention between now and our next meeting on October 1st, please bring them into the attention of the clerk, and we'll get all appropriate matters in front of council on their agenda for the next meeting. With that, time is now 9:30 p.m. We are adjourned.